This is Boss Bottled Absolu and this is Boss Bottled Elixir. Which of them is the best? I had questions about the two, so I wanted to do a comparison. Both of these were blind buys, and over a year ago I wrapped up my first impressions of Boss Bottled Elixir, saying it's a decent scent. I said it wasn't bad, but that it lacked something. But as you can see by the dent, I did not give up on it. I did let it rest a bit after that and have been using it every now and then, and in this video I will share how I feel about it now, what I think it smells like, and compare it with the newer Absolu. I will also share which of them I think is the best. Before I begin, a like on this video is highly appreciated, thank you, and make sure you subscribe. And please do share your thoughts on either of these two and which of the two you think is the best. So let's start with Boss Bottled Elixir. At the top we have frankincense and cardamom, at the heart of it we have patchouli and vetiver, and at the base we have labdanum absolute and cedarwood. So Boss Bottled Elixir on my skin opens up intensely woody and spicy. There's a freshness to the opening that's actually quite nice, and it brings to the opening an airy kind of feel even though it's not a fresh scent. This is definitely not a freshie, and what I think is kind of interesting is that I did not pick up on that the very first time I tried it. So either it was just that very first spray back then, or it needed some time to develop. That cardamom is popping off in the opening as well, so you have this primarily woody mix with a sort of an airy kind of feel to it and a bit of spicy warmth. Woodiness with a bit of warmth and something slightly fresh to it. I'm not sure if it's the cardamom vetiver combo or what it is, but there's something in the opening that gives me a bit of Dior Sauvage Elixir vibes, like a heavily stripped down version of it but with a twist. I'm not saying it's exactly like Dior Sauvage Elixir, I'm saying it has light Sauvage Elixir vibes. As Boss Bottled Elixir heads into the mids, its woodiness gets a lot more intense, and that sort of initial freshness or airy feel is less noticeable. There's a soft smokiness to it, but that smoky part of a Boss Bottled Elixir behaves so differently from wearing to wearing. Sometimes it's barely noticeable, and sometimes I can clearly pick up on it. Sometimes I get it early on, and sometimes it comes through more in the far dry down. I think, but I'm not sure, that this could be related to the amount of sprays that I apply. The whole thing changes from woody and spicy with a slight hint of something fresh to it, to woody, spicy and ambery with soft incense in the background. There's a noticeable amberness coming through the more it dries down. The light Sauvage Elixir vibes that I got in the opening are pretty much gone by now. As it goes into the dry down, the woodiness and amberness gets a lot more intense, and the spiciness of it is pushed into the background. There are hints of something earthy in the dry down. That part of it is quite soft and sometimes barely noticeable. There's also a soft kind of sweetness in the background, and even though that part of it is more noticeable than its earthiness, it's definitely not intensely sweet. I do not consider Boss Bottled Elixir a sweet scent. So in a nutshell, Boss Bottled Elixir is mostly a woody and ambery fragrance with something sort of a fresh to it in the opening and something slightly earthy and slightly sweet in the dry down. Once again, the incense here behaves so differently from wearing to wearing. Sometimes I get it mostly in the opening and sometimes in the far dry down. Curious to hear your thoughts on if you think Boss Bottled Elixir is smoky or not. Boss Bottled Elixir has definitely grown on me since I bought it. Moving on to Boss Bottled Absolu. Boss Bottled Absolu has frankincense and leather at the top, myrrh absolute and patchouli at the heart of it, and davana and cedarwood at the base. So Boss Bottled Absolu to me opens up quite woody with a prominent dose of smokiness. Its woodiness is a bit of the dry kind, but it does have a bit of smoothness to it. There's an ambery warmth and shine to the opening as well. Now the main reason I blind bought Boss Bottled Absolu was because it has leather in it. And now compared to when I first put my nose to it, the leather in Boss Bottled Absolu is definitely more prominent. So maybe this, much like Boss Bottled Elixir, needed a bit of usage and time as well. So there's a bit of leather in the opening, and even though it's a bit more prominent now than when I bought it, I still don't feel it's that prominent. And I would have loved for it to have been more intense. So Boss Bottled Absolu's opening is primarily woody, sort of a smoky and ambery with soft leather to it. As it heads into the mids, the leather grows in intensity, but it's still not an intense leather in any way, and the leather, at least to me, is of the smooth kind. To me, the mids is primarily woody with an even more intense amberness to it. The smokiness is still there, and it's a bit spicy with soft leather in the background. The drydown is primarily woody and ambery, and the smokiness has become a lot less prominent. There's leather in the drydown, but it has softened up a lot by now. The woody side of it feels a lot richer in the drydown, but with sort of a softness to it, and the dry down has a nice warm feel to it. So in a nutshell, Boss Bottled Absolu is mostly a woody, smoky and amber fragrance with a bit of soft leather in the opening and a rich woody and warm dry down. After wearing this more, I do think that my favorite part of it is the dry down. Even though I'm not getting that much leather at that point, the smokiness of it is a lot softer and the woodiness of it is much richer. I said it in my first impressions of it and I still feel the same way. This definitely smells niche, and it's really not the kind of scent I previously would have expected from Boss. Quite different from most of their own releases, and also actually quite different from most other newer releases from other designer brands. Boss Bottled Absolu has a bit of Parfums de Marly Carlisle vibes, but without the vanilla. So if you're a big fan of Carlisle, you might enjoy Boss Bottled Absolu, however, they are not the same. So let's talk about compliments and mass appeal. Comparing the two when it comes to mass appeal, Boss Bottled Elixir definitely, without a single doubt, has more mass appeal to it with its less smoky intense scent. None of these two are at the very top when it comes to mass appeal, and if you only buy fragrances that are extremely mass appealing, that most people will most likely enjoy, then these two are probably not the best ones to go for. But yeah, Boss Bottled Elixir is definitely the more mass appealing one. Comparing the two when it comes to usage, I do feel both lean more towards the colder months of the year, but Absolu even more so than Elixir. You probably won't agree with me on this, but I do feel Boss Bottled Elixir can be used pretty much throughout the entire year, but with a focus on fall, winter and spring, since I do think it's mostly woody and ambery and not super heavy. But with that said, Boss Bottled Elixir is definitely not my first choice on a warm day. Absolu is definitely more of a fall and winter scent. As for occasions, Boss Bottled Elixir is a bit more versatile and can be used for a wider range of occasions, whereas I do feel that Boss Bottled Elixir is more of special occasions or going out kind of scent. So Elixir is definitely the more versatile out of the two. Comparing the two when it comes to performance, I actually get pretty good performance out of both. And that's definitely not something I'm used to saying when it comes to Boss Bottled scents, but these two actually perform quite well. Through my first comparisons, I had Boss Bottled Absolu as the winner, but the last time I tried both, I had Boss Bottled Elixir still oozing from my skin when I woke up, so I'm putting this one as a tie. Elixir might have better longevity, but they both last quite a while with solid projection. So a quick comparison of the two scent-wise. It definitely feels they sort of created Boss Bottled Absolu based on Elixir. The core of both being the woodiness with patchouli and cedarwood. But whereas Elixir has a sort of a freshness to it, Boss Bottled Absolu goes into a richer and fuller woodiness and smokiness with a bit of leather. Whereas Boss Bottled Elixir has a bit of Dior Sauvage Elixir vibes to it, Boss Bottled Absolu has more Parfums de Marly Carlisle vibes to it. So there are some similarities for sure, but also some very clear differences. Boss Bottled Elixir for a fresher take on that woodiness. Boss Bottled Absolu for a richer take on it with an added depth thanks to the leather and a much more noticeable smokiness. So which of these two do I think is the best? This is in a way a tricky one. Elixir has grown on me, and while it's not a love, I do enjoy it a lot more nowadays. I do enjoy Boss Bottled Absolu, but it's also not a love. So I'm primarily going by scent first when it comes to which one I think is the best. With that said, Boss Bottled Elixir wins when it comes to usage and versatility. It's definitely easy to wear, but Boss Bottled Absolu wins when it comes to uniqueness. Elixir is a niche-leaning designer, whereas Absolu smells niche. Performance is so close, it's basically a tie. Boss Bottled Elixir is my favorite. It's easier to wear compared to the richness of Absolu, and I do feel it has more balance to it, whereas Absolu is a lot more woody, smoky and less easy to wear. Now this is where I want to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on Boss Bottled Elixir and Boss Bottled Absolu, and which of them do you think is the best and why? Like and subscribe for more. Make sure you check out my other videos over there, and I'll see you in the next one.